Did you know that humans are violent? The level of lethal violence is defined as the percentage of deaths due to conspecific violence out of the number of total deaths by any means. Researchers have debated about whether lethal violence is due to psychological, societal, or evolutionary factors. This curiosity over which factor was more prominent has led scientists to research lethal violence with an evolutionary and phylogenetic perspective. Jose Maria Gomez and his peeps analyzed data to see if the human race's levels of lethal aggression is caused by its position on the phylogenetic tree. First, the researchers analyzed levels of lethal violence in over 1,000 mammalian species to determine if there was a phylogenetic link between aggression and position on the evolutionary tree. But what is phylogeny? While it may sound like an ostentatious word for mucus, phylogeny describes a tree diagram which demonstrates the evolutionary path that modern species have taken from their ancestors. They can be based on DNA similarities and morphology. Phylogenetic trees are what the researchers use to organize and analyze if lethal violence is passed through evolution. Not only did they examine contemporary mammals, but they also examined fossil records, looking for imperfections in bone fragments and other evidence to suggest a violent death. By examining fossil records, the scientists were able to gain a better understanding of violence in both prehistoric and historic time. Once it was determined that there was a relationship between position on the phylogenetic tree and levels of lethal violence in a species, Gomez and his associates analyzed fossil records and written records to examine lethal violence in human populations and their ancestors, such as Homo neanderthalis. You know, those guys with the big sticks and the latest style of cheetah hide. The researchers ended up with two main results. The first idea they discovered was that the more territorial and more social species, like meerkats, had higher levels of lethal violence than solitary and antisocial species. They accounted for this when doing the statistics tests. Ew, statistics. The second result that researchers found was the relationship of human lethal violence over time. They estimated that the level of lethal violence from the phylogenetic trees was 2%, with a margin of error of 0.02%, and compared it to 3 errors of human history. The human lethal violence estimate fits the under-approximated percentage of lethal violence during prehistoric times. During historic times, surprisingly, the human level of lethal violence actually grew higher than expected. But by modern times, we got our act together and lowered the level of human lethal violence. This can be accounted for by the evolution of societal sophistication. One possible explanation for the existence of lethal violence in such populations is behavior, which we discussed in Module 4. That lethal violence was and is a proximate cause, with the ultimate causes being survival from other threatening individuals within the population, fighting as a competition for mates, and competition for limited food. In conclusion, Gomez and those other rad scientists found a phylogenetic relationship between lethal violence levels in primates and humans. Since humans are so closely related to primates, it indicates that humans evolved a portion of their lethal violent tendencies from primates. After all of the blood, sweat, and tears of the researchers, they determined that the human race's position on the phylogenetic tree has some relation to our level of lethal violence. P.S. No meerkats were harmed in the making of this video.